Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we're going to be talking about Elemental Starfield Spark Charge Blaster Runemaster. So, the concept behind this build is to utilize the node inside Runic Invocation called Elemental Starfield. The way that this node works is if you have one of each color of rune and you cast Runic Invocation, it will cast an Ellie Nova of each said color, which is absolutely amazing as that allows us to do a lot of things, as you can tell on the footage. Now, the first things, of course, is we can play spark charges with Fragment of the Enigma. We stack intelligence, we get a lot of flat for our spark charges, and then, of course, those spark charges have increased area, and then, of course, it will lead up to gigantic explosions, as you can tell. Now, what's really nice about this is we can trigger that Runic Invocation, which then, of course, triggers the triple Ellie Nova from Flame Rush, meaning that essentially in Monoliths, we have as close to a one button playstyle as you can get. I do utilize a self cast Lightning Blast setup, triggering Spark Charges, because Lightning Blast gets 200% more damage with Spark Charges, and you have a 40% chance on hit to apply Spark Charge, which is great because you have 10% from the Relic and like 30% from the tree, and that's enough for single target. Now, I will say this build has a little bit less single target than some other builds, but that's just mainly due to the fact that our clear is so strong. And essentially, the idea is to simply just blast through monoliths like it's nothing. I pushed this character all the way to like 500 corruption multiple times in different monoliths, but I would say you stay around 400, 300 ish if you want to have a really good time, which is when your Ellie Novas just absolutely obliterate everything in like sight. And of course, you can abuse the speed that you get from spamming Flame Rush to clear monoliths very fast. Now, let's talk about some other things about the build. One thing about the build that makes it really good currently, thankfully, is the fact that we are not abusing any of the ridiculous ward generation mechanics that currently that mage has access to. Like for instance, frost wall triggering flame ward. We don't have that. We don't have a twisted heart. We don't have any of that. All we have is the node inside Runic Invocation that gives us a bunch of ward per intelligence whenever we cast a 3 rune invocation, which we are always casting, so we get the triple Ellie Nova. Now, the runic invocation we are casting is called Grand Prism Nova. It essentially does nothing because it does no damage because EHD didn't really think that damage was necessary for skills in this video game. So hopefully one day that gets buffed. But I just chose Grand Prism Nova because it looks cool, I guess. All the others have around the same mana cost, so it doesn't really matter much. So just choose which one you like. You can like move around your skills on the bar thanks to immutable order, right? And choose whatever triple rune invocation you want. You could use Antipode to pull things in. There's a lot of different options. I just like Grand Prism Nova because it looks cool with the build. Now, other things that this build does, uh, I'm really happy with just the generic speed of the build. We don't have that much movement speed. For the most part, I was using a pair of double movement speed boots, but I realized that most of the time I was using just Flame Rush. You can actually get Flame Rush speed on your helmet, on specifically, you can get like 20%. You could use a transcribers technically if you want to go faster, but the best in slot weapon by far is of course Alchemist Ladle. That is because this essentially doubles your damage very quickly, as combined with all of the shred, all of the just everything, it essentially just doubles your damage. And since we're stacking intelligence, it also gives our cast speed a big boost for our lightning blast, which makes our spark charge single target very good. Because spark charges notoriously have a bad single target. They're really good for clear, but their single target's kind of meh. But thankfully, with this build, it kind of like beats that trope by actually having decent single target. Now, the only other thing I would suggest you have before playing this build is a Prismatic Gaze, and that is only because since we're using an Alchemist Ladle and a Fragment of the Enigma, we don't have that much room for base crit, so I'd heavily suggest having this before playing this build, or of course Ring of Ascension into one, whatever you end up doing. Now, with all that being said, if you haven't already, I'd heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that's the best way of supporting me. You can also check out my Twitch down below, as I stream Last Epoch every so often whenever I have a chance, and you can have a sneak peek of what build I'm working on next. With all that being said, let's go in game and talk about the build in more detail, shall we? All right, here we are in game with the character. This is my build. So far, we've just been blasting 500 corruption with it. It's been pretty fun. The bosses, as long as you choose the right modifiers, they don't really take that long, which I'm really happy with. And the monoliths are just easy as hell. It's amazing. I love this build. Now let's talk about some things about the build, some about skills. So first skill that we need to read is of course Runic Invocation. We mainly want to set up our immutable order so that we can always have 3 different runes so that we can always trigger 3 Novas. So for instance, you can tell whenever I cast a skill, I'm always going to gain those 3 specific ones. And that is what we need. Now, this does give our Runic Invocation a cooldown, but we build significant amounts of cooldown recovery speed to fix this, which is great. Which is great, right? Sorry about that. Now we also go down here and grab Elemental Starfield. This makes it so that whenever we consume the runic invocation, whatever, right? We cast Elemental Nova per invocation. So like for instance, if I cast it here, we get 3 Novas. Now I just want to make one thing clear. This does not work with the one Elemental Nova helmet specifically. I can't find where is it. Yeah, this does not work with Crest of Unity. I tested it. If you run Crest of Unity, it will only ever cast Elemental Nova once, even if you have like all of these nodes, and it doesn't matter. So do not run Crest of Unity with this build. That's just something you need to know. Now, of course, we also grab Cosmic Mind. This is giving us well over like maybe like 720 ward whenever we cast our invocation. So like I can show you here. Watch my ward bump up. Like that gave me like 1,000 ward in combination with everything else I'm doing. So that's great, right? That's wonderful. And then now the last thing on our list is we're grabbing Scrivener's Haste. This makes it so that we gain faster runes while channeling, because normally we only gain a specific amount of runes per second while channeling skills. But now, if like I channel Flame Rush here, as you can tell, bam, and we always get our runic invocation off, which is we're going to talk about Flame Rush here. We grab this note here, Epilogue. I just want to let you know if you do not have enough mana, like if you don't have enough mana to pay for Runic Invocation, you will not actually cast it. I don't know why it's like that. I thought it would go negative or whatever, but you need to make sure that you're at positive enough mana so that you can actually cast it. Because as you can tell, if you're like way too far down in mana, you actually won't cast your Runic Invocation. As you can tell here. Wait, here, right? See, I didn't cast it there because I didn't have enough mana. So make sure that you definitely have enough mana regen on your gear. So of course that's just runic communication. Of course, you can cast it, and of course we're grabbing the cold node that turn it cold because we want lightning, fire, cold. I'm using an unspec mana strike as well, just for mana whenever I feel like I need it. But that's pretty much it for Flame Rush. Flame Rush gives you a lot of abilities, like a lot of minus damage taken, doubled against dots, like a lot of ward per second and stuff. As you can tell, whenever I just do this, right, I gain an absolute insane amount of ward, and it's without any other broken mechanics, which is really cool, by the way. Now, let's talk about Lightning Blast. Stereotypical Lightning Blast tree. We just want to hit as many times with our convergence, get all the extra free casts, so that we can apply spark charges and deal more damage with said spark charges. If you are lucky enough to own a Prismatic Gaze with +4 to Lightning Blast, well, you're lucky, my friend, because you can put more points into Overcharge and get that ridiculous amount of double cast, which will increase your multiply your single target by 24%, which is great. And of course, 2 points in Lightning Attunement. We want Lightning Attunement so that we get Lightning Aegis, right? We really want Lightning Aegis because I'm waiting for it. Oh, I think I have to actually hit an enemy. We also get cast speed with Lightning Aegis. Eventually, you'd have 4 of these, and that gives us way more single target, which is great. And Flame Ward, it's the stereotypical Flame Ward tree, right? Let's talk about passives. So there's some very important passives. This is very important. You need to be watching this. Of course, all the intelligence you can get, all the attack cast speed, all the word retention you can get. Sorcerer here, we're grabbing 5 points into the calculated destruction to get all of that juicy crit intelligence. This is how we're capping our crit very easily. We're not capped necessarily, but we're very close. Then 5 points of arcane momentum for all that free cast speed. Then 6 points for the cast speed, get the intelligence and the ward on direct spell cast, get even more intelligence. The less damage taken. We need some mana regen, by the way, so we definitely grab some of that. Rune Word Cataclysm is really strong. get one little bit of a shock chance on hit, so we can shock enemies on single target so that we can get more damage. Of course, like this node here, inscribed instruments, is a lot of free crit multi, and one of the reasons why Ladle is so strong with the certain rune masters. Now, this node is very specific. You gain ward every 2 seconds. That's 80, but if you have a heal rune, you get double that, right? So, for instance, I gain 160 ward every 2 seconds, so it's like 80 ward per second. As you can tell on my bar here, you see all that ward that I have? That is only from this node. This node is insane. I'm surprised not more people use it. It's a 1 point wonder. It essentially solves a lot of your problems of like, oh, I don't have any ward all of a sudden. This gives you plenty of ward sustain, which is great. 6 points in the Decree of the Bountiful Ocean for all that mana regen. Eventually, 8 points in the Decree of the Burning Wind for the extra more damage. And of course, we do have raw runes always, because when I'm single target, I always have a raw rune, because guess what? I'm casting, so it's great. 8 points in Arcane Inscriptions. We want as much cooldown recovery speed as possible so that we can spam runic invocations, which I'll explain in a bit why. And of course, 5 points in Rune Word Infernal. This makes it so that whenever we cast our runic invocation, we get more armor per shock against enemies. It makes up for the fact we don't have that much armor and makes us much tankier against single target. Then 4 out of 5 points of Jagged Veil. We don't actually need this ward on crit for single target. I am running it though for of course, the more crit multi per 100 ward, which is great, right? Obviously. And that's pretty much it for the passives. Let's talk about the blessings here. Crit multi, of course, or you can get spell leech. I think crit multi is better though. Lightning or lightning shred. You don't need lightning shred on this build, so lightning damage is your preferred blessing. Then of course crit avoidance as always. Armor, then armor, right? And then for idols here, we just want cast speed with lightning aegis, res idols, and like just crit chance with lightning skills, because one of the biggest problems with this build is we don't have that much access to critical strike avoidance. I mean, critical strike chance. We need base crit, and we get a prismatic gaze with a bunch of crit, and we need a lot of crit to cap ourselves out with even this much crit. So like we need as much crit as humanly possible, right? And that's pretty much it for blessings. Let's talk about gear. So prismatic gaze. This gives us a bunch of base crit. It gives us increased crit. Gives us less damage taken, and also as well it does prism shards. We really like these prism shards because it applies fire shred, lightning shred, and cold shred, which all count as individual ailments for Mad Alchemist Ladle, and of course also gives us lightning shred cap, which is wonderful. So if we spam this on a single target with our runic invocation, because it will cost more than 40 mana, because here you go, 40 mana for our skill, right? Which then gets refunded, by the way, thanks to this node. So we spend the mana, then refund it, which is really cool because it makes it work with Prismatic Gaze without actually costing us any mana, which is really neat, by the way. Now we'll fire Prism Shards, more single target damage thanks to Ladle with that, which is great. Amulet, this is one of the best amulets I've ever dropped ever. You don't actually need this. It's just you mainly need the mana regen specifically. You want as much mana regen as possible on this build to make your mapping smooth. Ladle, I have crit multi. You can get cast speed on this. That would increase your single target significantly. I'd have to suggest trying to get a Ladle with cast speed first, then crit multi. Then, of course, Celestial Raiment here. We got just crit multi, intelligence, armor. Just we want to stack as much armor as possible when we're not stacking, other stuff, because we want to be tanky, right? And of course, for our Fragment of the Enigma, eventually you can get spell crit multi, res on this. I like mine so far, although I did min roll on the more attack damage, but it doesn't matter. Then this ring is absolutely insane. Crit chance, intelligence. Mainly for the rings, you want crit chance and intelligence, because like I said, you need a lot of crit chance. I got some crit avoid, stuff like that. Belt here, mana regen, lightning damage cooldown, and then whatever res you need, which is great. Then for the ring here, res, intelligence. I do have spell damage here. Technically, it would be better as a crit ring. You can also get another opal ring, or you can go for another copper ring. I'm partial to copper rings myself, but that's just a personal opinion. Here, we got Solarum bracers. We should have had cast speed instead of that crit chance, but I didn't get it, so whatever, I guess. Boots here, cooldown recovery speed, movement speed, intelligence. We don't actually need that much movement speed, because I'll be honest, most of the time we're doing this. So we're not really like quote unquote moving, but I would try to at least, of course, get tier 5 movement speed as always. Then for the relic here, intelligence, crit chance, Biz Void. So you get plenty of like crit multi from everything else. So I'd heavily suggest trying to get as much crit chance as humanly possible. And that's pretty much it for the gear. That's pretty much it for the character. With all that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go do something else. Bye.